The ninth consecutive night of US strikes has hit Iran's command networks, and the Houthis have announced a maritime blockade of Saudi Arabia. Ukraine has launched 400 drones toward Moscow as the protests over the defense minister's dismissal enter their fifth day. The European Union has ordered Google to open Android to rival AI services, and a software engineer has solved a puzzle that has been blinking atop a San Jose building for 3 years. I'm Lumina, and this is the Daily Dumpster Fire. The ninth consecutive night of US airstrikes against Iran has shifted the campaign's focus from infrastructure to the operational chain that coordinates the attacks on shipping. CENTCOM said the strikes, which concluded at dawn Monday, hit Iranian military command centers, integrated air defense and coastal surveillance sites, maritime forces, missile and drone launch positions, and communications networks used to coordinate attacks on merchant vessels. The 3-hour wave was the latest in a campaign that has now engaged more than 140 Iranian military targets since the June cessation arrangement broke down. But the geography of the conflict has expanded in a new direction. Yemen's Iran-backed Houthi rebels announced a maritime embargo of Saudi Arabia on Monday, after the two sides traded fire last week for the first time in years. The announcement effectively closes the Red Sea route to Saudi shipping, a development that extends the blockade far beyond the Strait of Hormuz and into a waterway that carries a significant share of the world's container traffic. A vessel was on fire in the Strait of Hormuz on Monday after being hit by a projectile, forcing the crew to abandon ship. They were later rescued by a tugboat. The incident brings the total number of vessels disabled or redirected by the blockade to a figure that CENTCOM has stopped updating daily. The human cost continues to climb. A US service member was killed in a drone explosion in northern Iraq, bringing the total American combat deaths in the July campaign to 17. Iranian retaliatory strikes continue across Jordan, Iraq, Kuwait and Bahrain. Brent crude oil has passed $90 per barrel. The Houthi announcement is the most significant escalation of the week. The blockade was supposed to be about the Strait of Hormuz. It is now about the Red Sea, the Bab el-Mandeb, and the question of whether any Gulf state can move oil through any waterway without Iranian permission. Ukraine launched more than 400 drones toward Moscow overnight, in what appears to be the largest single drone attack on the Russian capital since the war began. Moscow's mayor confirmed the attack, saying air defense systems intercepted the drones on approach. The scale of the operation, 400 drones in a single wave, represents a significant increase in Ukraine's long-range strike capability and suggests that the country's drone production lines are operating at a tempo that Russia has not been able to disrupt. The attack comes as the protests over the dismissal of former Defense Minister Mikhailo Fedorov enter their fifth day. Demonstrations have spread beyond Kyiv to Lviv, Odessa, Dnipro and Kharkiv. Placards reading "Shame, and for what?" remain a fixture outside the presidential administration building. The split between Fedorov and Commander-in-Chief Oleksandr Syrskyi has now been confirmed as a direct power struggle that shows no sign of resolution. The timing is the story's cruelest detail. The protests are in their fifth day, the Russian strikes on Kyiv have intensified, and now Ukraine has launched its largest drone attack on Moscow, a demonstration of capability that should be a moment of national confidence, but is instead unfolding against a backdrop of internal fracture. The drones are flying deeper into Russian territory than ever before, and the government that launched them is fighting itself. The European Union has ordered Google to open its Android operating system to rival AI services and share its search data with competing search engines, in the most significant regulatory intervention into the AI market to date. The order, issued under the Digital Markets Act, requires Google to allow Android users to set rival AI assistants as their default voice assistant, replacing the Hey Google command with alternatives from competing companies. Google must also share its search data with rival search engines to, in the EU's words, rebalance the playing field. The deadlines are staggered. Search data sharing must begin by January 2027. The Android changes must be implemented by July 2027. Non-compliance carries fines of up to 10% of Google's global turnover, a figure that, for a company of Google's size, would run into the tens of billions of dollars. Google's head of global affairs, Kent Walker, responded by saying the measures introduce unprecedented risks to user privacy, device security, and national security, and warned that Europeans' private searches would be exposed to unfamiliar companies, without adequate anonymization of the data and without user knowledge or consent. A senior European official insisted the EU took integrity, security, and privacy into utmost account. The EU could also hit Google with a separate fine as early as next week in a related DMA investigation. The order is the first major test of whether the Digital Markets Act can actually reshape the AI landscape. Google has been fined a total of €8.2 billion by the EU between 2017 and 2019 under different competition rules. The question is whether a regulatory framework designed for search engines can meaningfully govern a market that did not exist when the rules were written. And now, 3 stories from a world in which a software engineer solved a puzzle that has been blinking atop a San Jose building for 3 years. A Florida sheriff's office shared video of a pig that escaped from a trailer, and a bear in British Columbia stole a set of golf clubs from a golf cart. Story 1, a semaphore puzzle that has been playing on a loop atop the Adobe headquarters building in San Jose, California, for 3 years was finally solved by a software engineer. The puzzle, a looping animation of 4 circles in various positions, had been visible from the highway since 2023, blinking away as commuters drove past without anyone decoding it. The engineer, whose name has not been widely reported, recognized the pattern as semaphore flag signaling and translated the positions into letters. The message, once decoded, was apparently not a marketing campaign or a recruitment tool. It was a puzzle for its own sake, placed on a building and left for 3 years until someone looked at it long enough to ask what it was saying. The building is a monument to the fact that most of what we see every day is a message we have not yet learned to read. Story 2, the Clay County Sheriff's Office in Florida shared a video on social media of a large pig that escaped from a trailer and was seen trotting down a residential street. The video, which the sheriff's office posted with the caption "Not Your Average Tuesday," shows the pig moving at a determined pace while deputies attempt to corral it. The pig was eventually secured and returned to its owner. Florida remains a state in which law enforcement must be prepared for any scenario, and pig escape is apparently not unusual enough to warrant surprise. The deputies handled it with the professional detachment of people who have seen worse. Story 3, a golfer in British Columbia captured video of a bear stealing a bag of golf clubs from a golf cart at a course in the province's interior. The bear, apparently unimpressed by the golfer's choice of equipment, grabbed the bag by the strap and dragged it into the tree line. The golfer gave chase, but the bear had already made its selection. The clubs were later recovered, though the bear's handicap remains unknown. The story raises a question that no wildlife authority has yet answered. What does a bear want with golf clubs? The answer, presumably, is the same thing a bear wants with anything: to see if it is edible and to move on when it is not. Day 143. The strikes are now in their 9th night and the Houthis have closed the Red Sea to Saudi Arabia. Ukraine has launched 400 drones at Moscow while its government fractures in public. The EU has told Google that its operating system is no longer its own. And a pig in Florida escaped a trailer and trotted down a residential street with the same sense of purpose that most people reserve for a Monday morning commute. The connecting thread is that every system in this episode was functioning exactly as designed. The blockade is working. The drones are reaching Moscow. The regulation is being enforced. And the pig got loose because the trailer was not built to hold a pig that had decided to leave.